Thank you, Michael. We're going to have our clerk, Andy, run the meeting in my physical absence until I arrive. So, Andy, I'll pass things over to you.
Okay, thank you. So it's a little after 7. First topic on our agenda is to review the meeting minutes of April 3rd and April 8th. So we'll start with April 3rd. We do.
Okay.
David's on the line.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't.
On all the fingers.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so April 3rd meeting minutes. There's a red line copy for everybody on the table. Page 1, any additional comments? Page 2. Any additional comments, suggestions, or changes?
I move we accept the minutes of April 3rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. David, Michael, good? Okay, thank you. Meeting minutes of April 8th. Page 1.
Don't be a minute late.
Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6.
I move we accept the minutes of, approve the minutes of April the 8th.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes have been reviewed and approved. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So the next topic is to have any member updates. Anybody get any comments, questions, feedback specific to zoning board? None? Andy, any feedback on the Green Committee?
Unfortunately, I missed the last meeting.
Okay.
I had a conflict, but we're continuing to work on the plan, and working with the graphic artist to finalize it. So it's in progress.
So any perspective on the continuation or the next iteration of the committee? Are they gonna stay intact? They're gonna disband?
At this point, I think the expectations, they're going to stay intact, and move more into implementation.
Okay.
And how the role changes has not been quite defined.
So we don't know if they're gonna continue to solicit participation from other board.
Well, I don't think the membership is changing.
Yeah, okay, okay. So there's an open action item for this board to somehow reconcile and come up with a volunteer. Although the pay is very high, so we may not have to get Andrew out of the seat.
Put me in a wrong tax bracket.
All right. So there's a review of correspondence here. There's a lot of these related to one of the hearings tonight. So Michael, do we want to go through any of those other than detail when that hearing commences, or recommendation here?
None of the other items require any action. They're just more for information
Correct, right.
purposes, so we can move on to the next item.
Yeah. So is it appropriate that we kind of minute the fact that there is an appeal on one of the decisions that we made here on the Randall Road?
It's okay to acknowledge it,
Yeah.
but if we're in any discussion of that, I would recommend doing an executive session with town.
Yeah, no,
council.
I'm just acknowledging that there's been an appeal, that's all.
Are you gonna schedule one for the town council?
Yes, we're in discussions right now with town council,
Who, which one is?
Robin,
Okay,
but there's no
no rush.
no rush at the moment, but I'll keep the board informed when I
Yeah.
do get more information.
Okay, good. So there's no need to go through those in detail. They'll come up at a time when we get to that point in the meeting. Upcoming meeting dates. This is more of an FYI and just a matter of when we're gonna meet and some town events that are gonna occur.
Does the board want to schedule any for August or September? I know that it is a ways out, but I know that
Yeah.
summer plans do get in the way
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think, the same cadence that we normally have would be appropriate. I mean, if we need to alter that as we go forward, but at least for now, from a planning perspective, I would say let's just plan on the standard dates.
Do we have any hearings coming up? Anything new besides, I mean, Stow Acres obviously takes up quite a bit of time, but.
There are no other applications that are in at the moment.
Okay.
So,
We still have to complete the variance issues, discussions.
In terms of the bylaw, you mean?
The bylaw, yeah.
Right.
We were going to put it in the,
yes, a new appendix. I
yeah,
believe.
new appendix, to
Right.
the rules and regs.
Yes, I have that on like a work plan
Yeah.
that I have just. for running
We
this
just have to
stuff.
do it before we forget what we've
Right.
learned.
Yeah, that'll probably have to be towards August.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Any other discussion, comments, thoughts about that? Otherwise, that's all set. Okay,
Just, sorry, just as a
sure,
minor,
yeah, no issue.
we had one for 7/24. Is that our like last day sort of thing for that one? Is that why that's there?
So for, yes, August or July 24th, that is the statutory end of the comprehensive permit hearing.
Yeah.
I will actually be out of town on that day. So my hope was that it could maybe be a little bit earlier
Or we can ask for
or
extension for a
an
week.
extension if needed. Cause I'll be out for 10 days.
Yeah. There's a lot we haven't seen yet, so we may need to extend it.
Right, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's gotta get reconciled.
Right.
Right,
So, yeah. We'll see how things go the next 2 meetings and then decide from there.
okay. So we've got about 4 minutes before the next session can start. Anything we can work on in between? Well, not that 4 minutes gives you enough a lot of time, but. All right, we'll wait till 7:15 then.
You know, guys, for what it's worth, if you remember, there was a comment a couple, maybe last meeting or a few meetings ago that talked about the level of background noise. I will say, for the fact that this is the first time I've participated in a virtual manner, I guess post-COVID, whoever made the comment was absolutely right. I mean, it's actually shocking, like the level of background noise that gets picked up by that microphone. I don't think there's anything we can do about it, but like there are parts where this meeting was in the first few minutes, it almost sounded like a construction site. Like that's how loud it was. I mean, I could hear everything, but it was like shocking how much the mic picks up.
I keep saying we'll come hit them with WD-40, but I haven't done that. They were cheap. The chairs.
I think Denise has some chairs online.
These are
I don't know.
comfortable.
I don't know if it's just the chair. It's just like
You can say no.
so much.
Yeah, you're not moving around a lot.
Yeah.
Bill Byron.
They didn't want to move. Trying to sit still, Dave.
Here, sit in this. You're the chair now.
Well, that's okay. This works okay.
Sorry, I'm late, you guys.
Hey, Ruth.
Sorry to be late.
No problem. We're just waiting for 7:15 to start. the
That's
next
what I
public hearing.
figured. I figured I had like a minute or two, but I had blown the minutes.
Where are you now? In California or something?
No, I ended up not going because I got sick. But,
Oh,
but I'm all right. I'm gonna go back so that my smiling face isn't all over the enormous screen, which is just too weird. Actually, my smiling face does end up, but it's like the like not real smiling face.
okay. It's 7:15. We're going to reconvene the public hearing for 98 Pine Point Road. So this is an issue where we've solicited feedback from the abutter, the applicant, and we've not received any information. And the action I think that we have in front of us here is to decide what we think we would like to do with the application. We can continue it, we can choose to reject it. Either way, we need to facilitate the process here and get a conclusion on what we think we should do. So
So has anything happened different since we met last month?
we've
Is there anything
not
new or-
received any new information,
Since
there's
last-
no communication.
June or something.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. I think the last time we discussed this, there was, some feeling that we should probably give it one more time, and then if we had heard anything, then we would change or react accordingly, but we haven't had any information, so I think we had talked about we should probably close it.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone has a very good reason why there's a benefit to keep it open, I would say.
Yeah, I think the consideration at the time was there's been some financial, some cost associated with the application so far, but there hasn't been any response on behalf of the applicant, so I'm not sure where it's gonna go or how it's gonna end up, so I think that's the only issue that we kind of felt some level of consideration for.
1915.
No, thank you.
Does anyone remember when this was opened originally?
Yeah,
Like how long has it been now?
it's been over a year.
Yeah,
Okay, it's time to close.
The only thing I would ask of Michael, is there any reason whatsoever to believe that the applicant would not have received our last correspondence? I just figured I would ask to be safe.
I sent it through the mail and through email, so he's gotten it that way before. I've used the email that he has on his application, so he's gotten things from me, before, so,
So it's very likely he's received it in either way.
right. And I sent it at the beginning of last month, so it's been a while.
Just to check, are we actually certain he's not on remotely?
Unless he's under another name.
Okay, I wanted to check, make sure we,
Well, he needs to speak up, but the last thing we got from him was, an agreement with, Anthony McNair for surveying, the March 21st. Did he request an extension then?
He did not submit a request to extend it to today. So,
We haven't had any extensions at all.
yeah,
Since-
the last time he asked for an extension was, he asked for one in March.
Okay,
But he asked for that extension to be July 8th. The board agreed that it was too long of an extension, so it was a 1-month increment. And I've told him before that that would likely be the only increment increase in the continuation moving forward.
he's still around, isn't he?
Yeah, cars are in the car house.
Any other discussion?
I hate to see him lose the money that he's
Yeah, I understand.
invested so far
Right.
with us and, with the contractor.
fortunately, it feels like he's playing a delaying game for some reason and, you know, it's, I think it's time for us to tell him he needs to start fresh, and we've given him plenty of opportunity to come before us and at least give us a reason why it's taking so long, and, you know, if we had a good reason to delay, I'd be more than willing to delay, but we have nothing from him.
Yeah, he's been very silent on the matter. It's been,
How much has he invested with us so far? How much are the fees?
A special permit fee is $250 plus $2 per butter. So, usually less than 300.
So-
Yes, I move we deny the request without prejudice so that he can come back and reapply. If you don't, then you have to wait 2 years.
Do we need to close the hearing first, or?
well, I think,
No, I think we vote on that and then we can close the hearing. But
Okay.
that's
Okay.
my opinion, but sure, that goes.
I think you need to close the
I think
hearing
it's,
first,
Okay,
and then we can process the
Okay.
application.
okay, I move we close the hearing.
Second.
and, just before,
Yeah, go ahead.
you don't need to make a decision right now, because then the clock starts. So if you close the hearing, you have 90 days to make a decision. And then, so at the next meeting, I can have a written decision based on, with all the findings.
It'll also give him a chance to ask that to be reopened, republish the public hearing. So,
So,
Okay, so
I move that we close the public hearing.
I second.
seconded. Any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. David, Ruth?
I'm not on this one.
Okay, all right,
unanimous.
so we have an agreement that we have closed the hearing and we will notify the applicant. And we'll see if something changes before we actually disposition. Are you gonna write up the review and based on any feedback or commentary, we'll act accordingly at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so the next order of business,
Say that we may not be able to come next month, we do.
so just before you do, could you just identify yourself?
I'm Dan Barstow, my wife Eva.
Yeah.
We are abutters. We submitted our comments about this.
Yeah,
We appreciate you giving him patience, but he hasn't,
Yeah.
done his part. And
okay,
so we've tried to attend it. We may not be able to attend the next meeting. I hope that won't be
It won't have enough.
prejudicial in our point of view on this.
okay, thank you.
Since it's closed, you have to re-notice everybody. and in the paper and everything, so it'll take some time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Comment?
I know it's late, but had you looked up, I had my hand.
I'm sorry, Bill. Yeah.
So I would only say this, that whenever this happens, if it happens, I may have some issues with it or not. However, on his behalf, I do know that he has had a survey done. Now, surveys are hard to find and not inexpensive. Secondly, there's a possibility that he may be waiting for a plan or not. I don't know that. But I also think that if he was really interested, if he had been notified, an appearance here this evening would have given you an opportunity to hear what he had to say, whatever his reasons are.
Correct.
It's unfortunate.
Okay, yeah, I think that's our dilemma as well. We have not heard any feedback directly from the applicant in terms of what the intentions are other than what's listed on the application. And we've made a number of times, we've solicited feedback or commentary or appearance, and we've had no response.
Also, we sent him a letter last time, in his contract, to have it surveyed, he did not have it staked, boundaries staked. We wanted the boundaries staked so we could tell what's going on in the lot. And we don't know if he's done that. He may have had a survey with no boundary stake. That's a problem. And we told him that.
Yeah, yes, Bill.
On the one side of the property, there were markers found. And there was at least one marker from a previous survey. And as far as I could see, whoever did the survey merely verified those two markers. But other than that, I'm not aware of anything.
And he's gonna need it for the building inspector anyway, so. Those marks. So, you know, he's just not stepping up to doing the job the way it needs to be done. I think it's unfortunate, but
And you have bent over backwards to give him the opportunities, but he's
We
not
tried.
been responsive.
Okay, any other discussions? I apologize, Bill. I'm the fill-in tonight.
I need to make more noise.
we miss you, Bill. You can come back and straighten us out, you know.
Okay, any other discussion on the topic? All right, so we've got 5 minutes here and we'll get ready to open the next, reopen the next. Yeah.
We're looking for a new chairman. He's not showing up anymore, so you can step right in.
I'll be there shortly, don't you worry.
You hear your tires squealing into the parking lot.
This might not be needed today, but
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Be careful, that looks like a golf shirt.
Yeah, the quick sheet that you sent out to me, I don't know who did
Just the
it.
traffic study
You
here.
want an email
Yeah.
for him? Yeah, John Michael said he has, when he sends out the meeting minutes. He's got a list of things that we talk about. The topics. Oh, okay. Okay.
that
I know
was
what
the
you
snap
yeah,
memo
yeah,
that I
exactly.
wrote, so if you want to look at it.
Sure. I thought I printed it out, so I can't.
That's this guy here.
No, one that's the actual email, and his email, there's some bullet points about each of these.
And that
Okay.
is
Here's-
regarding something that might happen tonight.
Okay.
No, what's it, what do you get in your package?
It's-
Just a minute.
No minutes.
Anything that I haven't seen?
I believe I sent you
That's
this,
just.
Yeah, okay.
this you
I'm
haven't
not too
seen,
sure what you're looking
but
for.
might not get sent. It's,
Oh,
so,
okay. So, Okay, this is talking about the other, that, the one way.
So it would be the select board. That would have to deal with that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
Well-
got it, I got it.
I'll take one to say.
This is what I'm talking about. We had a little digest about each of the things.
Oh, hi. No, I don't have it.
That's okay, no, this is enough to refresh my brain. David, can you hear us and tell us how close you are? So we may have a photo finish for Dave to show up at the appointed time, otherwise we'll facilitate it and we'll work it out.
I'm not worried.
By an Astro. By an Astro.
Yeah, that was a fast finish.
Oh, yeah, really,
Amazing.
$3 million choice, one way or the other, right?
That's just the tip of
That's
the,
the
this
first,
tip of
right?
what they are. Yeah,
Right,
yeah. They say the, the stud fees for that horse could be like $30 million
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
For 10 years.
yeah, not bad.
So all of a sudden it's 150 plus the 3 million. It's insane.
And the horse gets nothing.
Yeah, he gets to do it again whenever, yeah,
Yeah.
right. He gets treated pretty well, though.
He does get stuff.
It's a family show.
True, yeah. Well, after last year when there was so many accidents, it was what, I think it was last year, it was like 11 or 13 horses passed away between
Yeah.
the several events.
Right.
Terrible.
For the building, for that sort of stuff.
Yes,
Proof is on its case. You're in charge of that.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 7:30. We can start the process.
yes.
So we will start the process. David is in flight, maybe just dashing in here at any minute. He's somewhere either on the line, in a car, or in the parking lot, on his way here. So we will reopen the 0 Randall Road, Stow Acres North Course comprehensive permit. And this, tonight, we're focusing on the traffic study and the fire department report. And I think there are some other pieces of documentation that are here. There's a peer report. There's a report from the fire department.
There's also
Police department. So I know some of those are new. I don't know that you have a copy.
I believe I have a copy of everything
Right.
except the draft select board memo that I just got and haven't had a chance to read, but everything else I believe I've seen, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I guess we can start the review process for tonight, if you're ready to do that.
Sure.
We can start.
Sure. I'm Mark O'Hagan from Shield Associates. And as you had said, some of the key aspects were the traffic report. So we had submitted a pretty extensive traffic study evaluating potential trips, looking at flows of traffic, areas where, different intersections that'll be evaluated, that were evaluated in conjunction with it. The board hired peer review to take a look at that report as well. Had a few comments, but I think, the general points that kind of came through it, and I do have Daniel from Vanass that did for the traffic study in case we have particular questions that the board has. But obviously, there is certainly going to be an increase in traffic in the area given the size of the project and the scale of the project. So that was evaluated, the number of trips, and again, the peer review tweaked it slightly, but it's there was a general agreement on that. The way that they evaluate the intersections is they basically will look, and they have a level of service grading that they utilize. Some of those different intersections, if you're going down to 62 and 117, or some of the other roads that they hit, all of those with the incremental traffic was still going to be within the acceptable range as a level of service on them. So they didn't anticipate to see any substantial delays anywhere. They had asked for the site distance information to be incorporated. And so we submitted a traffic study, peer review submitted a report. We then subsequently submitted a kind of comment in response to their information, which I believe the board has. And they had asked about the site distance on the road, which I know with some of the members that when we did the tour had some similar questions. And you can even see it, it's really relatively straight, relatively open when you're there. There's some vegetation along the edges within the right of way that may need to be impacted. But there's no problems in terms of visibility in both directions on the road to be able to work it through. One of that speaks to this memo, and I think it's probably more of a conversation, and some of the conversations that I've had with the residents has been the concern of cross street, both of people, really year round. So this is kind of before any proposal for the housing, the speed in which people travel down Cross Street that accelerates during the summer months when there's golf. That this intersection, and particularly along this section of road, where it's narrow, it's tight, it's a tight right of way, that having vehicles passing each other in that section has created some concern, and certainly walking on the street isn't a fun process in that time. So one of the things that the residents in my meetings with them early on had asked about the potential of, hey, if we're going to have all this traffic, can we look at making that a one-way? So we did incorporate that into the scope of work for our traffic engineers. They did review it, evaluate it, thought that it was viable, decent idea. I think peer review had supported that as well. From a practical sense, it's not this board's decision to make it or not.
Right.
So it's somewhat anecdotal. I think what the hope was from the perspective of the residents is that if there is a consensus that that might be a good idea, that if this board could be supportive of going through whatever the appropriate process would be, through dealing with the Board of Selectmen. I know that there's a safety committee that gets involved in it as well. As part of that evaluation, I think that's what they're hoping for, which we're certainly supportive of. Anything, feeling that the area will be safer and better utilized is certainly something.
So it's one way into, off of 62.
Yeah,
Onto Cross, or going out of Cross.
Going out of Cross.
Yeah,
That would
so
be-
you come up Randall Road, so presumably, I think it would be one way this way. So coming in Cross Street, and then you would come out to the right, back onto 62. Or theoretically, you can go up, Boone, yeah, down at Boone.
Boone is not a fantastic road, I'll tell you.
Boone is not the other, I think,
It's very narrow and.
yeah, the other, I think that the main aspect was, and I think it's Randall that comes out further down, is I think that's the intersection where there was more of a feeling that that's a safer intersection. Visibility is much better than.
But the angle is such that
It's,
making a left-hand turn there, you look at the traffic counts there, 0 people make turns there.
well, because they go the other way,
Yeah.
right? and getting on to 62 from, from Cross Street and crossing traffic when it's busy is not great either.
That's a tough.
Neither entrance is wonderful. And I think that's what they had looked at, accepted that, one way might be an acceptable alternative. But again, this is, it's in the information, it's available for the board, and
It's a
question
tough
whether
nut
or
to
not
crack,
that's something
really,
you want to
it's just
support
one of
is
them.
support the decision.
I must say, I disagree. I think keep it the way it is, but put stop signs so that three-way stop there.
Okay, yeah, and we,
I think that's a much opposed.
Where Boone and Cross?
Yes.
Yeah, where that Y is.
Right, it's been a problem in the past. They put a yielded right-of-way sign on Randall. They should have put 3 stop signs in.
have everybody stop.
And, the problem is, I think the accidents have all been single car accidents that people lose control coming down to the hill. But if there's a stop sign there, it'd be more, and a warning sign that there's a stop sign ahead. That it would go a long ways to improving that. But Boone Road, if you think about it, the only way you can get out of there is to go out from the golf course, is to go Boone.
Yeah.
And Boone is not,
It's
it has its own problems. I drive it frequently.
I think all the locations are not, they're not perfect. They are what they are. But that's, we wanted to support information to provide it for the benefit of the board, that it's evaluated. We're certainly happy to.
It's not our decision, but I think
Get
it's
more information, but that's been a significant concern for the residents, and, we wanted to, we're certainly supportive of their concerns, so.
I think I like a three-way stop myself.
And one other issue that, came up and through, it was really, it's been a combination of, I think I saw it originally on the fire or the police. They talked about it a little bit in the traffic study. But there's been, some question about this tight area right here. With the argument saying, this is a two-way, we've got a two-way entrance, and then we've got a second means of access. That theoretically, if something happened right here, it could, make a one-way access, a one-way point.
Yeah,
Whether,
we're gonna choke.
yeah, it's still a little wider there, whether something would actually happen in that location, obviously, it's anybody's guess. So what has been discussed, and I think it was in one of the memos, I spoke about it with our, traffic engineer as well. Really, the way to deal with it would be to try to make this a four-way intersection. So this could theoretically, could potentially widen out, and have the two means come further down. And if we could shift this road to make it a four-way intersection, then it kind of eliminates that gap. Now, we really can't move this road, and I'm trying to get out of the way for Kathy, because it really is, it's conservation issues for the most part that ties us into the way that we have it. So we've got a wetland here, there's wetlands in here, and there's, we're kind of almost, we're not bridging this, but we've got retainage on both sides to stay in the upland. So to move this either way is a bit problematic from a wetland perspective. To realign this and bring it down would essentially be opening this up, moving these homes that would go back again towards the wetland. So candidly, we're okay with it either way. It seems like it's a relatively small area, but push comes to shove, if we're looking to resolve that specific answer, I think that the four-way intersection is probably the best solution based upon the input from my traffic people. But that would come with, having some impact on getting tighter in up against the wetlands and, limiting some of the buffer that's there.
You talked about moving that house.
Well, what we're talking about is
Just
moving the
bend it
roadway.
back a little bit.
We'd be basically pulling this whole section back. So we are gonna be looking at this area, as we had talked about before, this, where we've got some, heavier grading in relation to the wetlands. So, we're gonna be looking to soften this a little bit, so we can kind of look at it all at once. But the net result would probably be more wetland impacts. So, which, not ideal, but if it's that versus health and safety and it's a legitimate concern, that's
Right.
probably the one that wins.
How far, what's the distance between the two pieces that you'd be trying to combine?
Maybe-
Yeah, ballpark.
Maybe 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not a huge area, but it's huge enough. You know, we could look to do, you know, to slightly realign this, but again, pretty much, it constrains that road quite a bit. But we can look to, we'll look to offset both ways, and do the best we can with it. And I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure that the board understands the balance
Sure.
of the two things.
Were you thinking, I'm sorry, Dick.
Oh, no, I just want to clarify. I'm just gonna get up because I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know, we don't have names. So here.
Yeah.
So like, is there gonna be any sort of traffic stoppage there, stop sign, any?
Oh, yeah,
not a
there's
light, but.
Yeah, absolutely. The stop sign there now, I mean, these sidewalks we have, these are gonna be raised sidewalks so that, you know, there'll be a stop sign there, but there will be a raised stop walk that physically will, you know, enforce it.
Yeah, because I feel like that's potentially one of the issues is that, if you're having an accident, like that's potentially where someone, the road on the left is gonna be flying through. And if the person on the right comes in, that's what I was kind of curious what.
Yeah, so I mean, we have it now that it's coming in pretty much at a 90 degree, so that would be a stop sign and it would be enforced with the sidewalk. So what would happen is that, you know, it would create more like a four-way stop sign. So, and we don't want them to be, you know, much less than 90, otherwise you end up with the same situation on Cross Street. That we're talking about, that people just, they merge, they don't stop and start and make those turns. So,
So Mark, I was just wondering, were you thinking, and I know this is all premature, that you might just move all those buildings back or just the first two or three?
I think it'll depend on what we need to do with the roadway to make it safe and to have the proper alignment.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be just a couple of them. I think this road will probably have to start further down here to make it work.
Okay.
So I think it'd be more than a couple. You know, whether it's, you know, three or, you know, I would say probably those first three at minimum.
Yeah.
You've got the little separation of the driveway there that has a little bit of a break, but
Right.
I think certainly those three would be impacted a little bit.
All right, thank you.
You know, when we've got a little bit more room here, maybe, you know, where we come in and we have this space, if, you know, if we use some of this space, you know, kind of further down, that could be an opportunity too. But again, with the kind of the clubhouse way, being, more set than,
Well, the
than the
less
other
you
one.
need to move into that wetland, I think the better it would be, right?
That's our opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
conservation has that opinion as well. So
Last time, did you contemplate moving that first house there?
not the first
Not the
house, no,
first
we
one.
contemplated, you know, originally
Yeah,
we had moved one from here over to here to
Right.
take pressure off of this one. And as part of some of the redesign and, he's doing work on it, but instead of trying to do all these incremental things, we were gonna, plan to do a broader change. So we're looking to potentially bring one back over here, and so we might be taking one out. We'll see what the best solution is, if this is the direction that, that we need to go to correct it. So, but it is, a pretty, it's not overly congested, but it's more constrained is probably the better word than congested. There's not, if the wetlands weren't there, we wouldn't have these issues or these concerns. We could push it back, open up the mouth of the center lawn, which is what we had that wider, the lower road, we moved in again for wetlands concerns in the back of it. So, we're just trying to find what is that reasonable, the best balance, I guess, between roadway alignment, home locations, and being respectful of the wetlands that are on the site. I think that, as we talked at the last meeting, they're all important. Some of them have a higher level of preference for protection than others because of the function that they serve on the site. So,
Quick question, just looking at that, and again, being a neophyte with this sort of stuff, but is there a way to put the road behind, basically shift the buildings towards the center.
I was actually thinking the exact same thing, and I was,
Yeah,
then all of a
basically
sudden,
put it
then I was
behind.
anticipating what your answer was gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was anticipating your answer being, and who would like to buy a house with a road in their backyard?
There's that,
Um,
yeah.
So, but I had thought about,
Yeah, I mean, but basically
That is
switch,
the-
turn the
that is the
houses
part.
around, so,
And I looked at it as well, just, briefly, so we will look at it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
and I'll
there's-
try to look at it in total.
there'd be an interesting conservation aspect as well, which is like,
Access to
what,
the buildings, when it becomes a problem.
well, that's, yeah.
yeah.
But I was
No,
just thinking,
that's the question.
from the
Yeah,
conservation,
that's a safety issue now.
Yeah.
You induced a whole different level of access.
Mark, can I
wetlands-
just ask a technical question? With regard to conservation, are we within clear margins of state regulatory? This is a sort of preference for town regulatory, or would moving it get you into more complex state
I think
regs, conservation issues?
Yeah, I mean, under the local act as the 35-foot, no touch, we've requested that waiver from the board. Within the 100-foot buffer, we're within the state guidelines. So, it all comes down, I think, to, trying to find the best solution that balances these needs. And, and I will go back through it, for that whole area, to try to, better address it. If I have particular, if I'm bumping up against things, Kathy and I talk, regularly on the issues. I can certainly reach out to her in the interim to see, what the feeling would be about, some modifications. So I think we can improve it. Exactly, what that would look like right now, I'm not quite sure. I think we've got a few things that we could look at, to try to, improve that situation. I really hadn't thought about it until we had seen the memo. It seemed like a relatively narrow thing. I mean, the other alternative is we could, we could just extend the 2-lane entrance down to the, to Clubhouse Lane, and that gets done. That's not, that doesn't, that addresses it to a certain extent, but it doesn't kind of fix the problem if there's a concern right in that little spot. So, and again, the odds that something happens right there is relatively modest as well. So, so we can look at it and try to come up with some alternatives to balance those needs. It is too invasive under the wetland areas. We can, have a sketch that brings down the 2-lane entrance farther and see if that works. And I'll certainly work with, with my traffic people too. And talking with the, the traffic consultants, they bet that if we were gonna make the changes to really eliminate it, that creating that 4-way stop was probably the best, from a health and safety plan. But that doesn't mean it's the only alternative. So we'll certainly look at the different ones. But
I think one thing that would be helpful would be, at least on 2 of the options in terms of, essentially which wetland you encroach upon, is just understanding on like really coming down to the details. of, like,
yeah, no, we'll focus in on that.
if option A, it's gonna be encroachment of this much versus this, The other piece is just to think about is, if whether or not there are ways to mitigate this in some other area of the property as a sort of a cost benefit. It might be one of those where you're going, listen, there's nothing more I can do in this area. However, over here, I can take one more extra step, whatever that might be.
Understood.
Rather than just focusing on, what can we do in this spot? Look at it as a property as a whole. So that could be an option.
No, I agree and understand, and
Unless you really want to put the road in the backyard. So, though I could imagine from a conservation standpoint, that could actually be more problematic of like, do you want backyard
Would you
next to a
rather have
wetland, or do you want cars
cars
next to the
and-
wetland the whole time? That actually, I don't know, that could be yours.
cars and salt and snow and all that stuff,
Yeah.
so. So, what's that?
It's the people that are.
People that are
Yes.
wrong. That is true, that is true.
I assume, by the way, that if for some reason the main entrance is inaccessible for some reason or another, the emergency access piece could be temporarily essentially converted to public use, like if you had to.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think that the concern started literally for about that, 100-foot section,
Yeah.
saying, okay, we've got, if if a vehicle gets trapped there, then then what happens in that, well, I guess more than 200 feet, the whole, that stretch of it, but, so, everybody, if the professionals are paid to look at the worst case, and that's what we're dealing with, so, so we certainly respect that, and we'll look at it, so we'll put together, a couple of alternatives, I will look at it broadly, that if there's a way that we can get some of the houses out of there some way, I'll certainly look at that. That is part of the issue. So I'll evaluate it, and next meeting we'll have some alternatives, and anything outside of what we're talking about, I'll certainly talk with Kathy about it beforehand. If there are other issues that we're dealing with, I can certainly get feedback from our traffic engineer. And if we need to send it for peer review to look at it, we can do that as well. But I think now that the issue is identified, we know what the objective is. I think we can probably come up with some different solutions. So, there were a few other items that had to do with circulation and such, more for fire and police memos and some things about the walkways that I can run through quickly. We've got these alleys, and we've gone back and forth, like these are, this is an alley for the garages. It really won't have any primary addresses on it. We've got other alleys that go back here, that run around. We've gotten a little bit of mixed messages. Originally, the police department said, hey, you gotta name everything, so we named everything. And then the fire department said, look, if it doesn't have an address, we don't want a name on it, it could be confusing. So, I don't particularly care. I think it's important that we get a consensus, and we can work with them on that to make sure that it's done. There are some areas where it's a valid question of what the address should be. So I think it'll be worth, I can meet with police or talk with post office, et cetera, to see exactly what we would want to do. Because again, like this main intersection, this main road that runs through the center, there's no houses that would be addressed on it. We've got, some homes here that are on the walkway that are serviced on the back that aren't necessarily on the street. So there are some questions as to, again, it goes back to health and safety. They get a call from somebody, it's 27X, they want to know exactly where it is. So it's an important issue. I think the naming of it is less important, as long as everybody knows if there's a problem where they need to go and make sure that it's addressed. So we will work through that.
On the mail issue, I don't know, semi-relevant to mobility, but does everyone have their own mailbox, or is it gonna be a centralized at the front?
No, we've got a number, we've got 3, we'll have a mailbox. Multi-family building, there'll be a mailbox inside the building. We've got mail here for the single family homes.
Okay.
And we've got mail back here for the apartments. So
Okay.
it broke it up a little bit to try to not get too much focus on it.
And school buses, is it just gonna be a central spot, or are they expected to go through the neighborhood?
I never try to predict what the school department's gonna do, and if I ask them today, it could be different by the time there's actually people in here as well.
Okay.
So I can reach out to them and see what they would think. I mean, there's a nice broad loop that runs through the property that,
You don't care?
I
don't mean to be flip about it.
No,
From
no,
your perspective,
I
you're
don't.
agnostic.
It's nothing that's gonna make or break, the property.
Yeah.
So I think given the amount of homes that they could very rationally take a ride through, have a number of stops, pick up kids and leave. When we talk about health and safety, if they want to say, okay, everybody's down in front, we all damn know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be 11 cars parked up here all morning.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Or at the clubhouse.
Or at the
That'd be an
clubhouse, what
ideal
they're
place
gonna
for
do.
it.
Yeah, so, I think getting into the clubhouse would be a little more problematic because, I mean, they could park and walk down there, that's true. So, I can reach out to the school department, try to find the appropriate person, Michael, if you could help, and see what their intentions would be. But I think given the size of the project, and I think the neatness of the loop, if,
Right.
you know, if it was a different configuration that was more complicated, I probably wouldn't feel as strongly about it, but I think given the scale and the layout, that it would make a lot of sense for them to drive in. But that's just one guy's opinion, so. Four-way intersection stuff we talked about. There was some questions about the pathway. What the pathway is proposed is that it would be a gravel path, it would be a pedestrian path. There are areas where it will be part of the old cart path for the golf course. So some of those are paved, some of those are gravel, there's a variety of them. We're not intending to have people riding bikes on that. There's been some question about, hey, if, you know, people want to come down and enjoy the walk, that's great. We'll have public bike racks here by the clubhouse, and we agreed that we'll set some up back here as well. So if people want to get onto the property, walk the full loop, they can certainly do it, leaving their bikes at the clubhouse, or if they ride into the property and want to walk down to the water in the back, they'll have an opportunity to do that as well.
But your intention would be to actually prohibit bike riding on the path.
Yeah, it's not gonna be, I don't think it's really gonna be suited for it. You've got some areas, you've got some grades and some elevations as you go in the back, you've got some tighter corners. I don't think it's well suited. I don't think it's well suited for bikes personally, you know.
And for the portions where the cart path is right now, would you keep it as, I mean, other than if there's a, so obviously there's a problem, fix it, but your intention is to keep it paved, or would it be?
We're not gonna dig up pavement that's there. No.
Okay,
No,
alright.
no, if it needs to be cleaned up or filled or something, we'll
Right.
make sure that
But you're not
that
gonna
it's
gravel
safe
it the
and
whole
reasonable. No, if we're using the existing path, we'll use the existing path. There is an area, I think we talked about it at the last meeting, but it was in the memo over here that, the trail, and I think I talked about it on some of the tours, will go through an area that is wooded, that does have some wetlands at the base. You know, so it would be elevated in there, and there was a particular term that I know you guys used last time, what's it called?
Boardwalk,
No, not boardwalk, but it was,
helical piers.
that's it, that's the one. So, I still don't remember what it is, but, so we would deal with that in the wetland area so that it's reasonable and appropriate. And even where it goes through the sections that is a bit wooded, you know, the intention is that it would be really an organic path. So we're not gonna be taking down trees, we're gonna pick, you know, the least invasive location to put it, elevate it as needed with the piers, and, you know, tie it in with the loop as it will go around. So that would be the intention of it. Other conversation that came up, both with conservation, some with health and safety as well, is having another connection to the town land. So what we talked about, we've got a little bit more space here. We're gonna put in, you know, what could be a pedestrian path, but we'll make it big enough, we'll make it a 10-foot easement. So if, depending on what the plan is for the town, if a road was gonna go down there, this would provide another potential option for a vehicular access to the property. I mean, right now, there's nothing that's over there, it's a hole, you know, there's a green there. So we'll provide the easement if it is something in the future that makes sense, pending what the town is doing on that property, for vehicular access, then that would be available to us. And there was also additional conversation, and I forget if it was traffic or police or whatever, but you know, these main sidewalks that we have going across the property, the intention is for them to be raised, to be speed control as well as just safety for crossing. Our intent is that we don't want anybody racing through this. Wherever there's an option to do it, we're gonna put something in the way to make sure that people slow down.
Have you been to Cambridge lately and see some of the speed bumps they have in that city?
Yeah.
Incredible.
They're
like a foot and a half high.
Oh, yeah, well, we don't need to be that high, but
Yeah.
yeah, so, but they'll, you know, be raised enough so that, you know, kids or people that are just in a rush getting home or leaving in the morning will be mindful of them on their vehicles. And I think those were the general issues that had been discussed, from traffic, from internal circulation, that were highlighted in the different memos.
How about the turnarounds at the end of the various roads for the fire department?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like they were saying make changes. It seemed like they were more of kind of pointing out what it is. They've been here since day one. We do have turning areas for them to be able to deal with it. They're all relatively short lanes. When I had met with the chief, we talked about them, and, he seemed okay with them.
Like Woods Way, it services places, homes. That's the only service it has, and there's no real turnaround on it.
Which is Woodway.
Woods Way, it's up,
I forget the names because I
Okay,
changed
I
them all
know.
around. Yeah,
this one here.
up back here.
Yeah, that's a problem. Some of them are just for the garages, so you would say, well, no reason for a fire engine to be back there, but,
No, many of them are for the garages, so we can look to make a more substantial turnaround. It's, it's gonna, go
Palmer
through some
Way
of
is
the
the
green
same
space
problem.
and some of the other changes, so.
Palmer Way, you have a turnaround. I'm not sure it's adequate for a fire engine, but there's homes there.
Which
Palmer
one?
Way,
This map doesn't, I changed it on the maps.
This
So
one
that
here.
one, yeah, that's, again, that is, there is kind of a double turn away there. That is generally for the garaging and parking for some of the homes here as well. So if, we want to try to locate hammerheads, in other areas, we can try to do that and free up some space for it.
and also these apartments are kind of isolated as far as the fire department's concerned.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and I didn't put it on my notes. What I've done in some other places, what happens is they need to be able to get to one side of the home for code. So what I've done in a location that I'm building now is that this walkway in front will be wider and it'll be a fire lane. So that'll be a full, 10-foot way instead of a 5-foot path, so that they can drive down there. I've done it before where we have a 5-foot path and then we have like the grass paved stuff, but they really don't get maintained and kept as well. So I think we're just better off doing, just doing the broader pavement, so that they can drive up there in emergency, but it would be, marked as a fire lane.
And Arnold Lane's another one that has a problem, the turnaround, which is, more over here.
In the middle, yeah. So we can take a look at them and see what we can get for space, but again, we've been dealing with this plan for a year and a half. And have had these built in, and there's not a whole bunch of flexibility, is the honest answer, so we can see what we can do with it. But again, I thought the memo was more, matter of fact that they're there, not requesting changes as I read it.
Well, I think you should really go through the fire department's memo and be serious about some of the places where they're gonna turn around. Another one's Tiger Lane has a problem. And,
There are several of them.
never,
There's several of them, and that's been part of my.
I realize it takes room to have a turnaround, but,
And they are relatively short. They are garage access, so, for people and stuff, they have other accesses, to the front of the homes, and, maybe we look at that.
there's still quite a few that are not on streets.
Is there no standard that the fire department has that it says it should be this?
I don't know what they have.
I would think that that's a rather important thing to know, and that they should be able to impose whatever that is and then do it.
I mean, my suggestion, frankly, sorry, Michael, is that we need to just ask the fire department point blank. I mean, it's one thing to say, we acknowledge the following, as opposed to saying like, we are requiring this.
I understand, I have been asking the
No,
fire
no.
department for 5 months and
No, I-
not get a respectful answer from them has been very frustrating. So I don't know if asking again and again will do any good.
Can I just, and I'm sorry if this was covered before and I missed it. Why are there two different notes? Like, why is there one tweak? Like, did they not look at it carefully the first time?
Because the fire chief came in our office, told us all his complaints, and I told him to put it in writing.
Because, I mean,
I,
it,
The 18th and the 30th.
no, so one question, just like, sorry, and I realize the names are changing, but like, is there a Tiger Lane?
There's one, yes.
Okay, because what I don't understand is why on April 18th does he say, there's a concern, there's no turnaround on Tiger Lane, and then on April 30th, it's not listed as there being a concern?
There is a problem. with it.
Okay, no, I know, but as of April 30th, the
Yeah,
fire
no,
department doesn't think that
no,
there is.
Yeah, right.
So-
He missed a few and got,
So, and I can try to meet with them again as well.
No, I'm just more expressing my frustration at the fact that we're getting inconsistent messages from
Well,
the
and
fire
that's,
department.
that's where, I want to, I'd say, I want to tighten it up. I want to make sure that, we've got an agreement of what we're doing or what we need to do. I will say it is frustrating that, this plan hasn't substantially changed. We've had this layout for a long time. I've had multiple meetings, talk specifically about a couple of the locations. And, it seemed like things were okay. So, and except the nature of the memo is, hey, take a look at this stuff. It wasn't changing. So that's kind of what I, kind of where I settled in at, where I had meetings and it wasn't expressed as a specific concern. But I'll reach out to him again, myself, and see if we can sit down, have the bigger plans and talk about stuff and see, if there are specific changes that he would like us to make, then I'll certainly work to do that.
I mean, the one thing I would impress upon both you and Mike, or anybody else who's, sorry, one sec, on anybody else who asks is, I think to Andy's point is, there's one thing to say, well, I really like this, as opposed to, there is a regulation that requires X, there's a statute, because at that point, whether it's 11th hour or not, there's really there's no choice, as opposed to, well, this would be fantastic, and I think for us, it would be beneficial to sort of know if there's a distinction. My gut instinct is that if there's a reg, it should be easy to just say, oh, yes, 1, 2, 3, 5. Sub 2 says blank or whatever. So, sorry.
I was just gonna say, if there was a reg, the applicant should be requesting a waiver from it. If you're not. then
Right, well, yeah,
there's
yeah,
compliance.
my guess is presumably the applicant is assuming that it doesn't believe that there is one, and so
Right, so then,
I'm encouraging anyone who does
Right.
talk to the fire department.
No,
to ask
and
them.
I talked about it with engineers before, so, I'll revisit the issue with the parties and,
Understood.
I'll do that.
Ruth, I'm sorry, Ruth, sorry, Ruth, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the absence of a concrete objection, reason, and set of recommendations, then we just have to proceed, because we solicit comment needs to come into us. I'm in a coherent, in an organized fashion, and then we can evaluate it. I think they'll do it one more old school try to sort of say, let's try to tighten this in to see whether these are big issues or just suggestions, and then we can go for your patients.
I agree. And this isn't directly related to it, but I would say that goes for any of the other boards or committees that have indicated that they were going to express comment and have yet to date. Does that?
why don't you go to Denise and say, we need meeting here at a meeting?
I can ask Denise.
Yeah, she has a little more authority.
I think that
Anybody.
often better doing this stuff offline because it allows people to kind of talk candidly. And if he can get clarity about what is, what is a violation of regulation 13.1.3 versus something that's off in that might be easier than trying to do it in a meeting.
I would agree.
By the way, I like street names for the alleys. I agree with the police. They need to be able to identify where a problem is.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
It may ultimately be the board's opinion of what it's gonna be,
I'm just
but I'm not
curious,
gonna wrestle around with it.
and the argument from the fire department to not include it is that it's gonna be confusing, that if you say a name, they won't know which one it is. I just don't understand. I'm just asking what the concern.
I don't know,
Okay.
honestly. I think part of it is to everybody's benefit. There are some homes that from an address perspective
Could be
are
either.
somewhat orphans.
Okay,
And I think if that problem is addressed and coordinated, then some of these other questions go away.
Correct.
That's my sense.
Yeah.
So I will work with the parties, get that resolved, so that we'll know how things would be addressed and if that necessitates any modification. So, but I think that's the biggest issue, that if no one really lives on the alley, or if there's a perception that this house addresses on the alley and it's really on a street, that could create confusion. And I think above all, that's the last thing that they want. This is gonna be a dense environment. They want it to be clear where to go, with people that are coming in.
Which is why
I
they're trying
certainly
to eliminate the confusion on some of the naming conventions, to make sure that they're clear and precise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's all.
No, all of that stuff, it's all very important, and I think, I'll kind of waiting to see, I wanted to see about the alleys, if I need to change the concept and come up with a whole different series of names, I'll do that. But I think the address stuff, when I think Michael and I were looking at it and going through it, I'm like, what address would this actually be? Helped, provide the answer of what could resolve things. So I will work to get that resolved again, to try to get an agreement between fire and police to name them, to not name them. And I think if there's a clear address plan, I think that'll go a long way in answering that question and getting them both on board is my general feeling.
Just another little question on the garages. The issue has been brought up that the cars fit in the little apron you have in front of the garage.
They're not intended
Huh?
to. They're not intended to.
They want them in the garage.
I don't have 20 feet in front
Okay.
and then 20 feet in the garage.
Okay.
So the reason that they're pulled back to the level that they are is to
Okay.
have an appropriate backing out without worrying about cars on the other side.
Okay.
So they've got a 2-car garage. That's the intention of it. I don't want 2, I don't want 4, I don't want 1 parked, perpendicular to the doors that are opening. So, it's specifically not intended to fit a car there.
Okay.
I think that was my list.
Andy, you want to keep running things, or do you want me to?
I'll pass the baton back to, you, David.
Hi, I'll open the floor. Oh, sorry.
We do have our peer review engineers on Zoom, if you have any questions. I believe that Amy and Angelica from Green International. So if you have questions for them about their letter, you can ask them.
Great, thank you.
I could. I have no problem.
All right, let's take a moment of for staff, if you guys have anything that has not been addressed or have any questions. No? All right, I'll take a moment to just open it up in the room for those who are here for any public comment. As a brief reminder, please state your name and your address before making any comments. Hearing none. Yes, sir, in the back.
William Byron, 469 Gleasondale Road. So the saying is, people can think you're stupid, but don't open your mouth and prove it. But I will say that at the time that the second portion of Pilot Grove went in, the board found out that there were prescribed turning radiuses for the larger fire trucks. And the turnaround at the end was not adequate so that they could make a complete turn without having to back up. So the board asked, or required rather, that circle be enlarged enough so that the fire trucks that they now have, the largest truck could turn there without having to back up. The board didn't ask them to accommodate later trucks that might be larger, but the ones that existed.
Thank you.
So I guess that does, raise another issue, even regardless of whether there's a statute or regulation. If there is a major safety issue that we need to know about, then, we should, find that out. If there's a problem with a fire truck making a turn or a radius or something like that, if it's a real direct safety issue.
I'm pretty sure the chief will be looking at that.
He didn't look at it so far.
Oh, he hasn't commented on it so far. I mean, I think, there are turning radiuses that we've complied with for the main roads and what they're dealing with. I think, a smaller lane access has a different standard than a dead end road, which has a turnaround that there's no other choice for them. So just like for traffic, they can come in, we've got multiple means of access. They can loop around, they can drive through streets, they can do all sorts of things to get into proximity, so that they're not in the position of backing up. So, dealing with a small lane that's servicing garages is very different than the back end of a cul-de-sac that has no other means of access and their ability to maneuver around it. So I certainly understand and respect the opinion, but I don't, it's not apples to apples with what we're dealing with, because we don't have any cul-de-sacs in here per se. We do have these lanes, and, I'm gonna talk with them to take a look at it, but that big, circular thing of how do we get this big truck to turn, isn't as much of an issue here, given the layout, as it is at the Pilot Grove, which I'm generally familiar with.
There are specs for certain truck size, like there's an SU-30 or some.
There's all different ones,
There's different ones, and he's got to say what size he needs, and then you have to accommodate whatever that.
Yeah.
There's specs for that.
We provided all the information, and so that's the main thing. I don't. Well, I'm not speaking for the gentleman. But we have met. We have talked about this. These weren't things that were brought up of you need to make these modifications. So I don't want to say that I know the specific regulation, because that would be overstating my background, but I will look at it again to make sure that, we're in compliance with everything, but I believe we are. And I will speak with the fire chief again about the addressing, about the lanes, and try to get some better clarity, one way or the other, from him. So everybody knows it's been addressed, and that I will do for next meeting.
Ezra?
And just on that topic, I mean, it's fairly standard. At a minimum, once you know the equipment, you're specing for the applicant to at least show on the site plan how that vehicle can get into everywhere. And the peer review can pretty easily confirm that. There's all these judgment calls about like, oh, but how do you get after and how quickly they can be, but just to access everything, that's pretty much just show the sweeps and make sure you're not knocking over fire hydrants, running over curves.
Radius of curves and everything,
Yeah, so I mean, you have that submitted already in the package.
And address peer review.
And the peer review's
I
reviewed,
don't
right?
think peer review came up with these issues either. So, I health and safety, it's important, but I don't want to be creating issues that the professionals have looked at and haven't really said this is an issue. And that's all I'm looking to do, because this has been reviewed. My engineer, your engineer, and the fire department as well.
And Michael, you can confirm that peer review has looked at the turning radiuses and.
I believe they have. That was from Dillis and Roy, and that was submitted at the beginning of last meeting. I don't know, can't remember exactly what it said regarding it.
Yeah, he didn't address turnarounds for some of the areas that need some turnaround.
Well, the thing that you're bringing up was submitted after the fact that we got the peer review.
Okay. I mean, the fire department.
The fire department's memo came in after the peer review, so.
Kathy, you're here.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and Mark and I haven't had this conversation yet, so.
It's a preview.
But as you know, the town has been working on the master plan for the portion of the north course that we acquired. And at one time, it was thought that the access would come in here. And I think there was a lot of concern about the proximity of the two roads. So we have made a decision to bring the access in up here, closer to the driving range, so they'll be separated. The road would come in here and kind of up to this area where there would be, this is in the draft, parking, recreation buildings, some of the recreation uses extending over in this area. So I do think it's a great opportunity to have some sort of an access that would get residents from here to there without having to go all the way out and all the way back in again. It'd be perfect if it could be here, but I know there's some logistical issues with that, so, you know, I think trying to make something work from there could happen.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got, with the basins, you know, there is space between them, so we can look,
Yeah.
we'll look at it again.
And I can share the plans with you
Yeah,
as soon as
that'd
I
be
have
helpful.
them.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is the town is looking at, sort of knitting together the cart paths that are on the north course into a fully accessible pedestrian and bike trail. And that's not an inexpensive undertaking, but, we're gonna be looking to get some grant money for that. If there was a way to extend that trail around, I think it would be ideal. Not expecting you to pay for a paved trail, but, you know.
So that's okay.
But, you know, I think it would make for a nicer facility if there was a way to do that.
If
If it
that's
can work.
something that the town, wanted to do, I'm open,
Yes.
to it, but it would, it can be, we can make allowances for it within the homeowners association to be addressed in the future, because that's probably timing wise, I don't think it'll be me that would be around when you're
Right.
making that decision.
Right, I mean, it's probably 10 years out.
Yeah.
Before that would happen.
Yeah, I'll still be around, I just, I'm gonna be vertical. May not be, hopefully, we're not still in here dealing with the planning of this thing.
You'll be in a 62 plus.
I will
He's
qualify.
got a reserved room there already.
I'll be well qualified by then, yes. I might be living in a one-bedroom apartment in a van down by the road.
So
Let me just take a moment and open it up to any comments or questions from members of the public that are on Zoom. If you do, please raise your hand virtually. Yes, in the back.
So there was a memo that came from the planning board, must have been in April. And I'm just wanting to know if you have any reaction to, one of the items in there, which was a review of different complete streets projects that are on our prioritization plan in the area. I'm just wondering if you had any comment on that or any thought toward treatment for the frontage on Randall, what you might want to.
I actually didn't know, what the complete streets entailed when I read it. So maybe you can give me some of that information and I can, take a look at it. What types of things are incorporated in the complete streets?
Parking lanes, bicycle lanes, walking lanes.
Sure, so sometimes when housing developments go in front of the planning board, they ask for items such as, easements, for future sidewalk construction or shared use path construction. There's also other projects that are in the vicinity closer toward Hudson Road. Just understanding with your traffic demand management plan, I think it's called, that there may be other road users in the development other than just the vehicles. So wanting to make sure that the existing neighborhood and then this new neighborhood would be better connected to other areas in town through bike lanes, sidewalks, paths.
Yeah, I can take a look at it conceptually. I'm for all that stuff. We have very little frontage actually on Randall Road. We do have, a sidewalk proposed that is tying in, or a connection that's proposed from one to the other and then crosses into what would be the town land. So, but I can look at the specifics and get more information and see what implications there may or may not be or modifications. So I can review it.
And then I was also thinking, just while we have our traffic consultants here, why not put them on the spot? So just looking to you both to hear if you have any opinions on this question of fire apparatus accessibility, and if there are other communities that you might work in that have, you know, these short alleys where an apparatus may have to back up for a short distance. Is that acceptable in other communities? Are there issues that you think of when you hear this kind of thing discussed?
Through the chair, if you wouldn't mind. For the record, my name is Daniel Lucivita. I'm a traffic engineer with Van Assen Associates Traffic Consultant for the project.
He's my consultant, just to clarify, he's my consultant, not the town.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
As it relates to fire, I heard it mentioned by, I believe, one of the members of the board, a truck turning analysis for a fire truck. And I believe I also heard that it was submitted. Did I hear that correctly?
No, not necessarily. I know that it was evaluated by our engineer, but exactly what the specific requirements are on the lanes, I don't think we have a specific plan. I mean, we've had the plan that we have that's been evaluated, but exactly what radius turning plans were done, I'd have to speak with my engineer.
That is just something that is relatively common. They may have already been done. Stamsky and McNary, I believe, are the engineers that may have already ran those truck turning analyses, but I really would leave it up to the fire chief. I know there's been a lot of comments about what he has and has not said and opined on, but that's really the kind of the major governing force that we would like to see be okay with the plans, because at the end of the day, it's their apparatus. It's their drivers getting into and using the property.
Thank you.
So that, I don't think we got an answer to the question that was raised here. So somebody from Green, can you speak to the question that Valerie raised with regard to complete streets? Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard the question. Valerie, sorry, did you want an answer about the complete streets or about the fire truck apparatus?
It was the fire truck apparatus.
The fire truck. Yeah. So I was gonna say something actually similar to what Daniel said. Normally we would just look at we would run a turning movement template using the largest vehicle that that specific town has. Some towns have different sizes of fire trucks. So we would just do a turning movement to make sure that it could access the site, and then generally that plan could be provided to the fire department as well for their review. But I have seen situations where a fire truck will have to back up a little bit within a site or something like that. That is not uncommon, and fire departments are usually okay with it as long as it's required for exiting and not necessarily entering. But I don't want to speak for Stow's fire department. They might have their own preferences.
Thank you.
Hey, can I just clarify for my own, that the discussion with the fire department at this point is around the alleys, not around the principal access to the properties?
Correct. I believe, sorry.
That's how I read it as well.
Yeah, it's just the alleys, is are some of the ones that were referenced in his memo. Yeah, the main street, there doesn't appear to be any concern. And you have looping aspects through, lots of different ways to get in and get out of places, so.
If I could just say something, when we're talking about like the size of the fire trucks, I think, I would ask the fire chief, not only in terms of the apparatuses that we have, but any contemplation of any future fire trucks, if he can, use some kind of foreseeability. In other words, if there's gonna be some other fire truck in the future that's gonna be a larger size, that's gonna, need a larger turning access. And I know that, that sometimes it's difficult to make predictions, but I would just ask the question anyway, in terms of what, you know, he would foresee in terms of what might be needed in the future as well.
One other thing, just to the entrance to the property, seems like the corners there would be rounded more for fire truck to access it, just turning radius there. Because you have, right now, the 90-degree,
Right off of Randall, you think?
yeah, right off of Randall.
Right.
It's 90 degrees, and it seems like you want to round those off to some radius to ease the fire truck getting in and out. Because they're pretty big units.
Sure. Yeah. In your, I think it's your engineer's response, they talked about the selective trimming and removal of trees. Is that on both sides?
No, it's really on this side, it's really on our side of the street.
I'm sorry, on both sides of the access to the development.
I think it's more to the right where there's a little more grown in stuff. To the left, it's a little bit more opened up. I think it's really generally, you know, it's just in and along here, there's some stuff that's grown.
Okay.
There's not much here, so
It's all,
either way, it's all open, it's all just scrub stuff. There's no, I don't even think there's trees. I think it's really just, you know,
Yeah, no, I
just
remember.
weed
Yeah.
stuff more than anything else.
And is there gonna be, I'm sorry if this has already been covered in other materials, so just bear with me. Is it a stop sign? Is it a stop light?
Stop sign.
To get in and out of the property?
Yes,
stop
sign.
sign.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there was a number of signage proposals that were incorporated within the traffic design, you know, up towards Cross and some other areas. So I can, you know, we can go through those in more detail if the board wants to. But they made a number of recommendations along those lines.
you don't have any drawings of the signs and everything, right, do you?
I don't think we have the drawings of the signs that can be provided.
You know where they are and everything.
I think within the traffic analysis, they located the ones that they suggested.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from, well, frankly, anybody, staff, members of the board, members of the public on the issues surrounding mobility? Final call. All good. Okay. All right, so anything else from the applicant? I'll give you the final chance before.
No,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, I think that then wraps up our discussion, at least for the moment, on mobility issues. In terms of, and I'll just be keeping honest here, in terms of sort of next steps, I think we were gonna talk about sort of a comprehensive sort of to-do list. And so, so that, as we've discussed, rather than having, you know, a series of updated plans that are then constantly being updated, that we can sort of deal with it all in one fell swoop, along with any other sort of responses. So I know, Michael, you had sort of put together sort of a rough list on our end. I don't know if.
I have one that I prepared. I thought we were talking about it for the next meeting. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. That for the next meeting, we were gonna be doing kind of the organizational structure and kind of running through that checklist. So I can send it to Michael. I have kind of a running one that I did.
Okay.
So I'll incorporate some of this stuff and I can send it to Michael. I did see that the list that he had, and there were a lot of them were similar. So I can send that in to Michael for distribution. I'll update it over the next day or so and send that in of what I'm talking with the engineer about and things that I'm looking to deal with. So I'll send that over.
That'd be great.
Have you sent this to him?
Yes.
Yeah, and
That's
there's
a
a
fairly
good,
complete
there's a good
list.
list on the back
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I had, you know, I have some more, mine's longer, you know, 'cause it's repetitive, so.
That's good.
But I will send that into Michael for distribution to the board, and if they can provide some feedback, if you think I'm missing anything or whatever, that would be great. But I will update it based upon today's meeting.
Great. Eventually, we'll want to have identified all the affordable units.
Yeah, we have a preliminary plan that we put together that was part of the application, whether it's the LIP app or the comp permit app, I'm not quite sure.
So we'll need it sooner or later to.
Yeah, so we can refresh it. I think we'll, my sense was to refresh it once we kind of finish with any changes and all that kind of stuff that, you know, that we're dealing with. So, but we do have an initial one that was prepared, so. and accepted by DHCD, and I think the town, you'll love it.
Okay, so yeah, so if you can coordinate with Michael, so that we've got sort of one consolidated list, that would be great. Obviously, as with the board, we reserve the right to change that in the future. But hopefully, if we have anything to add, it would be sort of a one-off. Otherwise, our next meeting will be on June the 3rd, I guess. June the 3rd, where the topics will largely be about governance, organization, the trust, and whatnot. So, a lawyer's delight. If I can be so good. So I think that'll be a worthwhile conversation, especially with the sort of unique structure here of having three requests. Anything else before we wrap?
Just ask you to get those to us as soon as you
Yeah,
can, because they're heavy reading.
Going to say the same thing. I will submit those as well, so I'll do one more review based on what we have, submit those, so you don't get them the night of the meeting, so
Right.
that's not helpful. I agree.
And so when do you think you could actually render the plan, the updated plan?
The engineer has done some of the work. I will allow me to talk with him tomorrow, and a lot of it is, it's more minor
Sure,
stuff, than major stuff. So I think this front area is really
This
the
punch
biggest
list,
issue.
obviously, is something that needs to be reconciled in that plan, right?
Yeah, but some of the punch list is more from a planning perspective,
Yeah,
not
okay.
necessarily an engineering perspective. So I think when we have that list, we can break it out. I think some of the list are items that would be conditioned. Other are things that I think we all want to get done and addressed now. So I kind of break them out and break them up in those, in those two ways. But right now, I'll send the list over. My key concern is going to be meeting with the fire chief because, this, radius stuff could have significant impact. That would be, could be problem. So I want to, make sure we have a plan that we're all comfortable with and then start filling in the gaps around it. Because, change one thing and have them go in and there's so much stuff that's going on. That going in and just doing one thing, there isn't one thing that happens. And so, that's why I wanted to, the governance is the governance. It really doesn't have, it's not gonna have much impact on the plans per se. But these issues, as it relates to the site plan, they're all significant because once you change one thing, it changes a lot of things. So that's why just getting to this point, these are important issues, so we'll work on that. I don't want to speak for the engineer because once he makes the simple changes, then the complicated changes can come behind it. So we may just deal with it for a schematic and, there probably will be subsequent changes by the time everything is done. So I would imagine that there would be a condition that final set of plans is reviewed and approved by the board. If, it isn't all down to the nth degree. So, but I, spoke with them last week, agreed we were gonna talk tomorrow, see where things are, and have a specific direction of what he needs to do.
So all that being said, we have an official date of July 24th to have this concluded and completed. Do you think that we're gonna do that or may need an extension?
We may. I'm not overly worried about it personally, one way or
Okay.
the other. Things are progressing. The board, everyone's been, I think people want to see this project happen. We have issues. We're working through them. If it takes another month, it's been 3 years. What's another month? So as long as we're working diligently through the issues, you're not going to have an argument from me of not extending. If that's a board's concern, it's not a concern that I have. So
okay, good. Thank you.
So
and just to be clear, part of the reason why I kind of wanted the list to get worked on sooner rather than later is because my expectation is that what gets discussed at the next meeting is unlikely to actually change any of the plans, because it's really more like a legal document, so it gives you a bit of a longer runway.
Agreed.
So, and then just
and a draft permit could start being prepared based upon all the stuff that we have. I completely understand.
So, and then just as a reminder for everybody, including members of the board, is that after June, our early July meeting will essentially be sort of a miscellaneous wrap up, like what we've missed, things that we want to follow up. So all the more reason that if progress has been made on some of these outstanding issues, we'll be able to deal with them at that time. And also a reminder for our conservation friends, that we have, there is an opportunity to also talk about integration with town land at the next meeting, which is, it probably didn't, need to have an entire meeting just about that, and so we can possibly tackle that on to that as well. Before we end things, I did want to just bring to the board's attention the memo that Michael had drafted on our behalf, that is essentially a request to the select board to consider amending the town's traffic rules and orders to include Cross Street as a one-way street, as has been discussed previously. I didn't know if folks want to just take a moment to talk about that. Pro, against, agnostic, however folks want, so I'll just open it up. I know how you feel.
Yeah, I think we had the conversation while you were in the car.
So-
We had a quick discussion. I think I think it should be 3 stop signs. Because I'm not
Could
too
you
sure.
speak up a little?
I think it should be 3 stop signs,
And not a one-way road.
not a one-way road, because the roads there are very difficult to use as they are, even with what's there is difficult to use. If you're leaving the golf course or this development, you want to go up Paul Street to make a left on Greasondale Road. If you're coming in from the Hudson, you'd come down Randall Road. If you come in from the Lake Boone area, you come down Boone Road. Boone Road is not, if you make Cross Street a one-way, you're gonna put an extra load on Boone Road, and it is not suitable
May
for
I make a comment?
two-way traffic. Yes, yeah.
It's Helen Ham, 21 Cross Street. Boone Road could also be one way the other way. Have you considered that?
I haven't considered any, because I think what the roads are there are just barely adequate the way they are as
Well,
far
that's
as.
what I'm
yeah.
saying. If you're
yeah.
saying that by making Cross Street would increase the traffic on Boone, that they could each be one way the opposite of each other. So you'd basically have potentially coming in, Cross, going out, Boone and Randall, or the other way.
Okay.
I mean, one, and obviously everyone can voice their opinions. One option, if we wanted to, if there's a difference of opinions amongst the board members about what the recommendation is in the draft memo, is to essentially modify it. And rather than saying we recommend X, is to essentially say, we ask that you essentially come up with some solution, and we can either list out options or what, but the point is to direct us to respectfully request that the select board provide a, I do use the word solution, but.
Alternatives,
Options,
options.
exactly, so that we can, we can sort of act accordingly.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But, well, the board, the traffic, it's not, we're not gonna make a decision. The selectmen are gonna go to the traffic group and they're gonna make a recommendation.
No, I understand, but knowing what they're gonna do before we have to make our decision, helps us out a lot. And so that's why I think asking them to act on this now is better. I mean, frankly, if they don't act, that is a message in and of itself.
Yeah, but with Boone Road though, my concern is if you make it one way either way, there are people that live on that road. And how's that gonna impact the people?
There's only one driveway on that road.
Just fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Ruth, were you gonna say something?
I just was saying that I like your solution, David. I think that recommending that a decision be reached is a good one.
Ezra?
Just in as much as this is coming up in the context of this project, I think it might be helpful to ask the applicant to provide to your traffic board, or whoever is reviewing it, any information they have from studies. If you really felt that this was an impact, in theory, it would be in your rights to ask the applicant even to contribute a traffic study beyond that. I'm not sure if you want to or not.
It's already in the traffic study.
Yeah,
We-
and so
we
just to make
evaluated
sure
it as
everything
part
you
of it
need.
already.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of time boards, they say, great, thanks for raising the problem. We don't have the money to figure this out.
The traffic study has all the data, what the press turns are and everything, the traffic and the proposed traffic, and they kind of all agree that here are the numbers and everything. And it doesn't get beyond a, was it level B or whatever,
Yeah, right.
So,
In terms of the level of service stuff.
level service B, and, it,
Yeah, I'm
it's
more thinking-
serviceable, but it could be improved if we have some one-way or a three-way stop or some other arrangement how the roads are used.
Yeah, that's all I'm imagining, is sort of
Yeah.
someone who could take you through the alternatives and say,
Yeah, no,
how does it model that?
yeah, I mean, yeah, no, the point's taken. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the board can't change the traffic pattern, nor can we condition it, right?
Correct.
All we can do is make a suggestion or a recommendation to whoever has the authority for making those changes, correct?
Yes.
Right? So it's really just us offering a position.
Well,
I'm just trying to think about how do we do, is it part of our decision when we actually render our results in our decision? No,
no,
right? So it's a nice conversation.
Yeah.
Right, but it doesn't really inhibit our ability to go forward.
well, that's true. I mean, if the select board stays silent on it, we don't talk to them at all, we have to act accordingly. It's up to the town to do whatever they want. You know, but at the same time, I'm
No, I
looking at
think
the
we
sort of.
should offer our opinion. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
But. we
But
can't
you're
get
right,
bogged
the
down.
impact is limited, yeah. So, okay, so it sounds like we're in agreement that we should at least ping the select board and say, hey, what do you wanna do? The question is, do we do it as written, or do we modify essentially the bold section? Well, I
I
don't know.
haven't had really a chance to study this thing.
Okay,
I mean, I read it quickly. I mean, my thought is really, I mean, I think what we should end up doing is just saying that it's recognized as a problem by, everyone who's been looking at it.
right,
And we request them to have it reviewed and resolved so that this traffic issue, I mean, because we each have our own opinions as to what works, but none of us are experts. We really
That's right.
don't know what's the best way to handle it.
right.
So it really should, I mean, I don't know that we're at a point where we could even suggest solutions when we're.
No, of course, and presumably there should be an opportunity for people who actually live in all these roads to actually come up and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this. Unfortunately, this is just not the appropriate forum, for that. As you're the one who drafted it. I don't know how you want to do it to the next steps of, can we modify it to be a little bit more?
So what I can do is I can modify this memo based on just saying we'd like some action taken, whatever that may be. Then I can have someone, you can vote on someone to review it and send it back to me with any comments, and then I can send it to the select board.
I mean,
At some point,
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that, or you either, I don't care. I'm happy to do it.
I mean, I think we should also, or either the select board or us should get some input from public safety people, meaning, the highway and
So
police
that's
department.
The
Yeah.
process that will happen is that it will go to the select board, they'll refer it to the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, they'll hold a public hearing on it. Whatever comes of that public hearing, they'll make that recommendation to the select board would then send us a memo back with what to expect.
Okay, that makes sense.
Ignore it all.
But send it back to us, fine, but
That's just for information.
yeah, right, it's just an FYI, because there's nothing we're gonna act on.
It's nothing that we need to act on, it was, the one-way scenario was a solution brought up by the traffic engineer, and it was acknowledged by the peer review. So ignoring it, you can do that, but it's been brought up by two entities, we've heard it from neighbors before. Not acting on it I don't know if is the best use.
This board can't act on it, is all I'm saying, right?
Correct,
It's gotta be done outside the realm of this body.
correct.
So we can say all we want, we can listen to all we want, read all we want, but somebody else has to take an action for something to occur.
Correct.
So we're not trying to ignore anybody, just
Right.
trying to make sure that everybody understands the process here and what influence we do or don't have.
I guess the influence that you have is to start the conversation.
Yeah, right, I think we're willing to do that, right?
And that's,
Yeah, I mean, certainly from my viewpoint, I have no problem with noting in the letter that this was the recommendations that came out from the
No.
traffic review.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I don't think we should recommend it.
yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, the way I would have it is to say, like, it has been recommended specifically, by the applicant's engineer and noted here, is that this is one possible solution. I mean, I don't think it's a downside, but it's also been voiced, that other alternatives include, reversing the one way, the other way, the three-way track sheet. We ask that you take these all into consideration and provide,
Feedback.
tell us, tell us what you're gonna do. And Vandy's willing to take the final edits on that.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. All right, in that case, I guess I'll take a motion.
Make a motion that we, what's the word we want, reschedule or continue?
No, on this.
Yeah,
Oh, on that.
I make a motion that Mike comes up with a draft and Andy will review it and sign it. Send it to the selectmen.
Okay, second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Motion passes.
So, and he can talk over with Mike exactly.
Yeah.
Anything that he wants to point out.
That sounds
I
good.
think. Yeah.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain one more motion. To continue.
Want me to do it now?
I was waiting with bated breath.
I make a motion that we continue the hearing until June 3rd at 7:30.
All right, second it.
Motion, second, any discussion, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes and signature has been received. All right,
Thank you all.
thank you. All right, there was one other item, just flag. And that is briefly the special permit review of 19 Crescent Street, the library.
Which house are you saving for us?
So, thank you. So, so any,
Or you go to Casa and fix.
all right, any thoughts from folks? I'll just kick things off. I mean, really, it comes down to whether or not we consider this a material change or a minor change.
It feels like material to me.
Yeah.
There's enough things going on here that things are changing in a lot of dimensions.
Even if it's, I mean, this is just sort of an odd point that I want to raise, but it's like, I agree with you based on the list.
Yeah.
That being said, it's shrinking,
Yeah.
rather, and so it's this odd sort of moment being like, well, it's a material change, and they shrunk it to actually make it more in line with the zoning rules, and now we didn't have a hearing.
They needed it so much,
Oh,
they had all these square feet, now they're a lot smaller than the existing library. And they're gonna put the books on the first floor, why is there a problem with the second floor holding a weight? Why not just reinforce the second floor and keep what they've got and rearrange it?
So
I don't understand the whole thing. It's so
Well,
screwed up.
I guess
And what's it gonna look like?
all topics for another.
sounds significant.
But but essentially, if it's considered material or significant change, we need to hold a hearing for it. If we're discussing it first. Okay.
Have they filed the variances? The registry,
Yes.
they did? We can't rescind those, I don't think,
It expires in a year
Yeah.
from the date of
if they don't
this.
use it. Okay,
But they still need a variance?
no,
They do not need a variance, they only need a special permit.
So it's just a modification on the special permit?
Yes, they're seeking a modification. They, as you've probably been aware, they have changed the design of the library. There have been a few changes made that the board might consider major, you might consider it minor. it's really, in talking with, to take a step back, in talking with Denise, it's acknowledged that the special permit they have is still valid.
Of course.
So they can do work according to that. But they can't do work based on the revised designs. So she said that it's not pressing to get this done within the next, month, but to get it done sooner rather than later would be ideal. Because really all they can do is the demolition work on the 1970s edition.
What do we have scheduled other than Stow Acres for the next meeting?
At the next meeting, it would be a deliberation of 98 Pine Point, and that would be it.
Okay. And okay, have they formally actually asked for a modification? Or is it just this memo giving us a heads up?
They did not submit a request. It was more as what would the board determine it to be so that they could file it correctly.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a process question? Would
Yeah,
it make sense to have the board that, and actually, this may be more than that. In terms of who hears this, does it need to be the same board as voted on it originally, or is it different group?
Well, it doesn't have to be the same. It's a separate safe fish permit.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So
in other words, which board members, because I think I was.
It doesn't make any difference.
yeah, it's considered,
Five people.
it's considered basically a fresh issue.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's a
But just
petition.
whether it's major or minor.
Yeah.
Where there's an uncertainty, I always veer toward the major because that covers all bases. And I don't think it's gonna be a controversial issue, I don't think anyway. So I think it's a way of covering all bases.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the diagram here, everything goes fit in within the old footprint, period. They're making it smaller, right? Not making it bigger.
Yeah. From a procedural standpoint, if it's the board's determination that it is material, it's a material change, we have to take a vote on that, or do we just communicate it?
We can just communicate it.
Oh, perfect. Okay. And we have any objection to communicating it that way?
Yeah, I think I'm in favor of that.
We don't need a vote.
So, well, no, we don't need a vote, so just clear, so it's minor or major?
Major, I'm sorry. I keep using the word material, and I'm sorry.
So it's going to be a major change, major
Yes.
modification, okay.
I haven't looked at the warrant yet, but is it in the warrant
It
about
is
the
not.
library?
All right, so please communicate to them that we do consider it a major change, and as a result, they should submit a formal application to modify this special permit. All right, anything else on the agenda? I don't think so. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting at 9 o'clock.
Second.
There we go. Ruth, you got beat, I'm sorry.
She does it with a smiley face.
Yes, he does. You have a motion with a second, any discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes, meeting adjourned at 9 PM. Thank you.
Guys.
Night.